The first time I noticed it was Thanksgiving. Not the chaos of it, not the noise, but the silence. Specifically mine. Everyone was talking over the mashed potatoes, passing around the roasted carrots and pouring wine like it meant something. But when I got to the table, there were no more chairs, no space, no plate, not even a gesture towards squeezing in. Maybe grab a stool from the kitchen? My mother called out, barely turning her head. I did. I sat there with my plate in my lap next to the sideboard, half behind a lamp. My aunt stepped over me twice without so much as a glance down. That was the moment, the one that shouldn't have meant anything, that looked like nothing from the outside. But I felt something inside me curl away. Quietly, without screaming. They used to say I was the easy one. Not the brilliant one like Eric who won the science fair in 7th grade and got a mention in the local paper. Not the pretty one, like Claire, who modeled for a bridal boutique once in high school and now hosts tea parties in her backyard for her friends and their babies. Just the easy one. The one who didn't complain when plans changed. The one who got straight A's but didn't boast. The one who drove herself to her own graduation. The one who always brought something, never forgot birthdays, and left early so others could sleep in her old bed when they visited. I started shrinking back then. I didn't realize it until much later, but I began talking softer, laughing less, taking up less space in every room, literally and otherwise. Don't think anyone noticed. When Claire got engaged, they didn't ask me to be a bridesmaid. That one stung a little more. I was told I'd be helping with logistics, floral pickups, guest welcome baskets, coordinating the Airbnb arrivals. It was phrased like a compliment, as though I was too dependable to be just decorative. I folded napkins until my knuckles ached. And the morning of her wedding, I ate a cold croissant on the curb behind the venue, while the rest of the girls were getting their hair done. Nobody asked where I was. I wasn't even in the photos. Not really. It's always small things. That's what makes it hard to explain. When Dad gave Claire the vintage mirror from Grandma's house, after telling me for years it would be mine, he said, "She has the space for it." When Eric moved back into town, they gave him my old room, the one I painted myself, the one where my journal still lived in the top drawer. Just temporary, they said. But they never asked me. Sometimes, I imagine what would happen if I just stopped showing up. Would they notice? Would anyone call? Or would it be like I was never there in the first place? So I started small. I stopped texting first. I didn't bring a side dish to Easter. I didn't send Claire a card when her baby turned 1. When Mom asked if I could help set the table last Sunday, I said, no, that was it, just that one word. No excuse, no smile, no apology. She blinked like I'd just spoken another language, and then she asked Claire instead. I sat on the porch the whole evening. The food was inside. The laughter was inside. I watched the steam curl from my coffee, cradling it like a shield. The porch light flickered once and stayed on. The cicadas hummed. A neighbor's dog barked at nothing, and I stayed where I was. Not because I wanted them to follow, but because for the first time in a long while, I didn't want to follow them. I didn't think silence would echo, but it did. They didn't say anything that night. Not when I didn't come in for dinner. Not when I quietly left my mug on the porch railing and walked to my car without a word. The next morning, I checked my phone out of some old instinct. No messages, no missed calls. Not even a "where did you go?" I wasn't surprised. Just disappointed in myself for still hoping. The next week, Claire posted a group photo from Sunday night. Everyone at the dinner table, Eric pouring wine, Mom smiling. Even the neighbor, Margaret, was seated at the end, holding a slice of pie like she belonged. I wasn't in it. I was on the porch when that photo was taken, just out of frame. A presence too quiet to notice. A shadow just beyond the glow of the chandelier. The caption read, "Family nights like these are everything, everything." I stared at the word for a long time. I wasn't angry, not the loud kind, just tired. The kind of tired that sinks into your bones and makes you want to disappear gently. When I was 12, I fell off my bike and scraped up both knees. I sat on the curb, crying into the sleeves of my sweatshirt. Eric biked past me. Claire walked home. I stayed there until the streetlights came on. When I got back, Mom asked where I'd been. "You should speak up next time," she said. "How would we know you needed help if you didn't ask?" I never forgot that. The way it placed the blame back on me, as if invisibility were something I chose. Maybe I did. A few days later, I dropped by unannounced. I don't know why. I guess part of me still wanted something. I think I was hoping they'd ask me in, or that Mom would make me tea like she used to when I still lived there. I brought over a small bag of oranges from the farmer's market. Thought maybe she'd say they reminded her of how I used to peel them for Claire when she was little. Instead, I stood on the porch holding the bag for 5 minutes before knocking. Mom opened the door halfway. "Oh," she said, surprised. "Did you forget something?" "No," I said. "Just had some oranges. Thought you might like them." She took the bag but didn't invite me in. Just glanced behind her like she had something on the stove. "Thanks. I'll, see you Sunday?" "Maybe," I said. I saw the flicker of confusion on her face, like maybe was a foreign concept. I had always been the one to say yes. I left before she could ask anything else. That Sunday, I didn't show up, didn't call, didn't send an excuse or fake a cold. I went to the old bookstore downtown, the one with the squeaky floorboards and the mismatched chairs. I sat in the corner by the dusty biographies and read half of a paperback I didn't buy. The woman at Baosao, the counter didn't know my name, but she smiled at me like I was welcome. I bought a lavender scone from the cafe next door and ate it slowly in the window light. No one talked over me. No one passed me by. And when I checked my phone, there was still nothing. But for once, it didn't make me feel small. It made me feel free. The thing about pulling back is that no one pulls with you. I thought maybe someone would notice the space I left, that Mom would call to ask why I wasn't at dinner, that Claire would text, wondering if I was upset about something. Even Eric, in his usual distracted tone, might say, "Hey, haven't seen you in a while." But the phone stayed silent. My inbox stayed empty. A week passed. Then 2, and still, nothing. I started noticing how much quieter my apartment had become. Not in a sad way, just spacious. Like I could breathe again. There was a time I'd fill my Sundays baking lemon bars or setting aside little wrapped jars of homemade jam for the next family gathering. I liked watching people's faces when I brought things. That fleeting flicker of appreciation. It made me feel like I had a place. But now I didn't bake. I didn't plan. I didn't show up, and no one asked why. One Wednesday afternoon, I stopped by Dad's office. Not for them, for me. I had a few tax documents still registered at their address, and he was the only one who understood how to decipher his own messy filing system. His door was open, as always, the room stale with old coffee and paper. He looked up from his laptop when I stepped in, blinking as if I had come back from the dead. "You didn't come Sunday," he said casually, not quite a question. I shrugged. I had plans. "Everything all right?" he asked, but his eyes were still on the screen. "Fine." He nodded like that was enough, like that was the end of it. But it wasn't. I stood there, holding the papers, watching his hands on the keyboard, and I realized he wasn't going to ask anything more. Not where I'd been, not if I was okay, not even if I'd gotten the oranges back. I placed the documents on his desk. "Thanks," I said, and I left. Later that night, I got a text from Claire, just a photo. A new set of pastel dinnerware, powder blue plates, rose gold forks, blush linen napkins folded into tiny fans. Underneath it, she wrote, "Finally got my dream set for Sunday dinners. Isn't it cute?" I stared at the image, counted the plates. 8. Enough for everyone, -1. I didn't respond. That weekend, I dropped by the local thrift store. There was a chipped ceramic plate near the back, a single one, navy blue with faded white speckles around the rim. It looked like something from another era. A little too heavy, a little too alone. I bought it for $2 and took it home. That night, I set a single place at my table. Just one. I made roasted potatoes, baked a piece of salmon, and poured myself a glass of wine. The light above flickered softly, catching on the edge of the chipped plate. I didn't pray. I didn't toast. I didn't scroll through my phone or turn on the TV. I just ate. Quietly. Slowly. And when I finished, I didn't wash the plate. I left it there. Not out of laziness, but because I could. Because there was no one else to set the table for. And maybe for the first time, that felt like something to honor. I didn't expect a cake, but maybe a message, a call, a post. It was my birthday last Thursday. I didn't tell anyone, but I never had to before. It was one of the few days in the year they seemed to remember without prompting. Usually Mom would text something with too many emojis. Claire might send a blurry picture of her daughter holding a crayon drawing that supposedly said, "Happy birthday, Auntie." Dad, on occasion, would forward me a link to some New York Times article he thought, "I'd like writing happy birthday. This reminded me of you." But this year, nothing. I sat at my kitchen table most of the morning, waiting for my phone to light up. I even turned the volume on, just in case. I made my own breakfast: eggs, toast, coffee. The coffee was bitter. The eggs were a little too runny. Around noon, I checked my phone again. Just a spam notification about car insurance and a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemails. I think part of me still hoped it was just a mistake. A late message. A belated gift in the mail. But there was no mix-up. They forgot. I used to throw my own birthdays back when I was still trying. I'd make cupcakes from scratch, hang little banners, invite the whole family over even when I knew they were busy. One year, Claire came late and left early. Another year, Eric forgot altogether and called me 3 days later from the airport, and yet I kept trying. Because I thought maybe love was something you earned through effort. But effort doesn't mean anything if no one meets you halfway. I spent the afternoon wandering through the park, phone buried at the bottom of my bag. It was colder than I expected. I hadn't brought gloves. The wind made my eyes water, and I let the tears fall without wiping them away, pretending it was just the breeze. There was a bench near the duck pond where I used to sit with Mom when I was small. We'd feed the birds with torn-up crusts from her sandwich, and she'd hum something soft while I counted each one. Now, the bench was empty, a little crooked. One of the slats had split, and the plaque that once read, "In Loving." Memory of Harold and May was almost worn smooth. I sat there anyway, a little older, a little lonelier, a little more invisible than I was the year before. That night, I bought myself a cupcake from the corner bakery. Lemon poppy seed. I didn't light a candle. I didn't make a wish. I just sat by the window, unwrapped the paper, and took slow bites, each one a little bitter from the citrus. At some point, my neighbor's window lit up across the alley. Their blinds were half open. I could see them, an older woman and her partner, dancing slowly in the kitchen to a song I couldn't hear. It wasn't dramatic or showy, just quiet swaying, arms around each other, gentle, rhythmic. I watched until the song ended. Then I turned off the light and went to bed. 3 days after my birthday, Claire posted photos from her daughter's second birthday party. The living room was decked out in soft pinks and golds, balloon arches framing the mantel, little name cards placed neatly in front of teacups, the kind of party where every corner had been curated for the background of a photo. The caption read, "So grateful for everyone who made this day so special, Subarshang family time." I studied the photo like I was searching for a code. Everyone was there. Mom, Dad, Eric, even distant cousins I hadn't heard from in years. A few neighbors. A few of Claire's old college friends. Not me. Again. I didn't cry. Not this time. The ache had become too familiar, dull at the edges, more of a presence than a sharp wound. Like background noise you forget to tune out, I did something else instead. I stood up from the couch, crossed the room to the hallway shelf where a small, gold picture frame sat, a photo from 5 years ago. Thanksgiving, the one where I had made the whole meal. Everyone was smiling in the picture, forks midair, glasses raised, candles flickering. Mom's hand rested on my shoulder in the photo, like we were close. Like I belonged. But I remembered that day. How I cleaned the kitchen alone. How Claire had shown up an hour late with store-bought pie and still got all the compliments. How I cried doing the dishes. I lifted the frame off the shelf. It was heavier than I remembered. And then, without ceremony, I placed it face down in the drawer. Not angrily. Not with regret. Just quietly. Like closing a book I no longer needed to reread. The following Sunday, I got a text from Mom. "We missed you at Lily's party. Everything okay?" It took her 4 days to notice. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed and erased at least 7 different replies. Eventually, I wrote, "I didn't know I was invited." She didn't respond for 2 hours. When she did, it was just, "You're always welcome." I locked my phone. I didn't believe it. That evening I took a walk. No destination, just movement. The air had that soft bite of a coming season. The trees were losing their color, the wind sweeping tiny fragments of gold and rust across the sidewalk. I passed a bookstore, the lights still on, a bell chiming faintly when someone opened the door. I didn't go in. I kept walking, wondering what it would feel like to move cities, to start over somewhere no one knew my name, to walk into a place where I was no one's forgotten daughter or convenient helper, just a stranger with a past no one asked about. The thought was less lonely than I expected. It felt clean. Back home, I made tea. Jasmine. I poured it into a mug I'd never used before, one I bought on impulse last year and left untouched behind the old ones that said, "World's Best Daughter" and "Daughter One Sister." This one was plain, simple, just white, with a little silver rim. I held it in both hands and let the steam warm my face. I didn't post anything about it. Didn't take a picture. Didn't wait for anyone to ask. The kitchen light went out last night. It didn't flicker, didn't warn me. It just died. One moment it was there, humming quietly above the stove, and the next, darkness. I stood there holding a glass of water, my reflection dim in the window, and didn't move for a while. Old. Me would have fixed it immediately, would have dug through the drawer of loose batteries, mismatched screws, and half-used candles to find the right bulb, just to keep everything running, just to stay useful. But I didn't. I lit a candle instead. The same one I'd been saving, for guests who never came. Lavender and fig, soft and subtle. The flame cracked once, then held still. I made dinner by candlelight, ate on the couch in my socks, and when I passed the switch later that night, I didn't flip it. I left it dark. On purpose. Because some things don't need fixing right away. Some things are better when you stop trying so hard to fix what doesn't want to hold you. The next day, I got a voicemail from Eric. It felt like a joke at first. I couldn't remember the last time his voice came through my phone. He didn't say much, just that he'd noticed I hadn't been around and wanted to check in. That was it. No apology. No, how are you? Really. Just a vague suggestion that my absence had become inconvenient enough to mention. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the thrift store again. There was a new stack of postcards near the register, most of them yellowed at the corners. Some written on, some blank. I picked one with a faded photo of a lake surrounded by autumn trees. The back was empty. I bought it for 50 cents. That night I wrote my name on it. Just my name. No return address. No message. I slipped it into the drawer with the old picture frame still lying face down. On Sunday I walked past my parents' house. I didn't go in. Just stood on the opposite side of the street, hands in my coat pockets, watching the faint shadows move across the living room curtains. The porch light was on. Claire's car was in the driveway. There were extra shoes by the door. Small ones. For a brief second I imagined what might happen if I rang the bell. If I smiled and said, "Sorry, I've been distant." If I stepped back into the role they'd always saved for me, I could almost hear the conversations, see the polite relief on their faces. But I didn't move. I didn't ring the bell. I turned and walked away instead. Back home, I replaced one bulb, not the kitchen one. That one I let stay dark. I fixed the reading lamp in the corner, the one next to the armchair I never used. I sat down with a book, pulled a soft blanket over my knees and read for 2 hours. No one interrupted. No one asked for anything. No one forgot I was there. And for the first time in a long time, that felt enough like love. Monday morning came with its usual ache, the quiet kind that hangs behind the ribs before you even open your eyes. I didn't check my phone right away. I stopped doing that weeks ago. But when I finally did, the group chat was lit up with photos from Sunday dinner. Again. Claire had changed the name to The Fam at some point, like it meant something. A few dozen messages, all of them loud. Eric made lasagna. Mom said the salad was too adventurous. Claire's daughter smeared chocolate all over her dress, and everyone laughed like it was the kind of chaos families bond over. No one asked where I was. No one mentioned my name. So I pressed and held the thread. Muted. Not left. Not deleted. Just silence. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't want to spend another morning wondering if I was allowed to matter. There's a corner of my apartment that always felt forgotten, next to the bookshelf. Just wall and shadow. But lately, I've been looking at it differently. Like maybe it could hold something that reflects back who I am now. Not who I used to be when I still showed up early to fold napkins and offer rides, to people who never said thank you. I bought a mirror from a secondhand shop. Not a perfect one. The silver around the edges was flaking, and there was a small hairline crack on the bottom right corner. It reminded me of myself. I hung it anyway. Not centered. Not polished. Just honest. That week, I saw Mom at the grocery store. She didn't see me at first. She was in the frozen section, comparing brands of pie crust, frowning like it was a meaningful decision. I stood at the end of the aisle for a moment, watching her move. How small she suddenly seemed. How fragile. I wondered if she missed me, at all, or if she simply missed what I used to do for her. Eventually she looked up. Her eyes flickered when she saw me. "Oh," she said. "Hi." "Hi." There was an awkward pause, one I didn't rush to fill. "You haven't come by." I nodded. "I know." She waited for more, like she always did, like I might soften. But I didn't. "I've been busy," I said, even though I hadn't. I'd just been still, choosing stillness over performance. She smiled, weakly. "Well, let us know when you're free." I wanted to ask why. Why now? Why ask me to come back into a room that never made space for me? But I didn't. Instead, I said, "I will," and walked away. Back home, I made soup. The kind I used to bring to family potlucks, slow-simmered, full of herbs no one appreciated. I ladled it into a chipped blue bowl and carried it to the couch. The living room was quiet, lit only by my reading lamp and the flicker of the candle I'd started burning more often. I didn't check my phone. I didn't take a picture. I didn't wish they were here. I just ate, and when I finished, I washed the bowl, dried it with care, and put it back on the shelf. For myself, it was the first week of December when the letter came. A simple white envelope, no return address. Inside, an invitation. Not printed, not formal, just a handwritten note from Claire. "We're hosting a holiday dinner, December 18th. Would love for you to come. Lily misses you." No mention of what had been said or unsaid. No apology. Just an opening. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know the answer, but because part of me still wished the gesture had come sooner, back when it would have meant more. Back when I would have said yes without having to think about how saying yes always came at the cost of myself. I placed the note on the windowsill. Let it sit there. Didn't text back. Didn't plan an outfit. Just let the invitation exist, untouched, like a door left half open in a house you no longer lived in. That weekend, I went to the locksmith. The spare key to my parents' house was still on my ring. Old, worn, the edges dulled from years of use. A shape that used to fit into the front door like muscle memory. I had meant to return it, or throw it away. Instead, I held it in my palm and felt its weight. The locksmith looked at me. "Need a copy?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "Just getting rid of the ones that don't belong anymore." That night, I dropped it in a donation box outside the local shelter. Maybe someone would melt it down. Maybe it would be forgotten. Or maybe it would simply disappear quietly, the way I had, without a scene, without shouting, without grief. Just absence, deliberate and whole. On December 18th, I lit the candle again. I made tea in my plain white mug and opened the window slightly, letting the winter air curl through the apartment. My reading lamp hummed in the corner. The thrifted mirror caught the glow and threw it back, softer. Outside, the world was glittering with frost. I imagined them gathered around the table. Claire's, laughter, Dad's quiet nods, Mom asking who brought the wine. I pictured an extra chair, an empty plate, maybe a pause in conversation that no one filled, or maybe not. Maybe I was never missed. I turned off my phone, took down the last picture of me with them from the fridge, folded it once, then again, and slipped it into the drawer with the postcard. The face-down photo, and the half-burnt matchbooks from old dinners I used to host, not out of bitterness, but because I needed the space. Wrapped myself in the blanket from the armchair, and opened the book I'd been slowly working through for weeks. Outside, someone walked by, humming a tune I didn't recognize. The sky was a soft bruise of lavender and dusk. I took a breath, and it felt like the first one I'd taken in years that didn't require someone else's permission.